The White House, the United States Capitol, symbols of American democracy. And right now, they're at the heart of a whirlwind of activity driven by President Donald Trump and his administration. From the halls of Congress to the briefing rooms where reporters gather, the news cycle is dominated by Trump's agenda. We're seeing a resurgence of conservative policies, clashes over press freedom, and even the involvement of figures like Elon Musk in shaping the federal landscape. In this series, we're diving deep into 4 major developments that are reshaping the political landscape under President Trump. These are stories with far-reaching implications, touching on everything from the national budget to the rights of federal workers. Our first stop takes us to Capitol Hill, where a contentious battle over President Trump's budget has just begun. The House of Representatives, now firmly under Republican control, has taken a significant step towards enacting the president's fiscal vision. This budget proposal, championed by Speaker Mike Johnson, is a clear reflection of Trump's priorities. It calls for significant increases in military spending, aims to bolster border security measures, and lays the groundwork for a new round of tax cuts. The passage of this budget in the House marks a major victory for President Trump, signaling the potential for his agenda to gain traction in Congress. However, this is just the first act in what promises to be a protracted political drama. The budget now faces an uncertain future in the Senate, where Democrats remain deeply critical of its provisions. They argue that the proposed cuts to social programs will disproportionately impact vulnerable Americans while further enriching the wealthy. The battle lines are clearly drawn. Democrats see this budget as a betrayal of the American people, a document that prioritizes partisan goals over the needs of working families. They're particularly concerned about proposed cuts to healthcare, education, and environmental protection programs. Leading Democrats have vowed to fight tooth and nail against the budget in the Senate, hoping to either block it outright or force significant concessions from the Republican majority. They're calling on their constituents to make their voices heard, urging them to contact their senators and express their opposition to the proposed cuts. The Democrats' strategy hinges on highlighting what they see as the budget's most egregious flaws. They're painting a picture of a heartless administration that's out of touch with the struggles of ordinary Americans. Whether this message will resonate with voters and sway enough senators to derail Trump's budget remains to be seen. The coming weeks will be crucial as the budget fight moves to the Senate floor. A central pillar of President Trump's budget, and a key point of contention with Democrats, is the proposed tax cuts. The administration argues that these cuts are essential for stimulating economic growth, claiming they'll lead to job creation and increased investment. However, critics argue that these tax cuts are little more than a giveaway to corporations and the wealthy, offering minimal benefits to the middle class, while exacerbating income inequality. They point to the Trump administration's previous tax cuts, arguing that they primarily benefited the rich while doing little to boost wages or create jobs. The debate over tax cuts is a microcosm of the larger ideological battle playing out in Washington. Republicans see tax cuts as a way to unleash the power of the free market, while Democrats view them as a fiscally irresponsible giveaway to those who need it the least. The outcome of this debate will have profound implications for the American economy and the distribution of wealth in the years to come. It's a high-stakes game of political chess, and both sides are playing to win. Another key element of President Trump's budget is a proposed increase in military spending. The administration argues that this increase is necessary to counter growing global threats and maintain America's military superiority. However, critics question the need for such a substantial increase, pointing out that the United States already spends more on defense than any other country in the world. They argue that these funds could be better spent on domestic priorities like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The debate over military spending often boils down to differing views on America's role in the world. The Trump administration clearly favors a strong military presence on the global stage, while critics advocate for a more restrained foreign policy and a greater focus on domestic needs. As the budget debate continues, the question of how much to spend on defense will remain a contentious issue. It's a debate that goes to the heart of America's national security priorities and its place in the world. The House passage of President Trump's budget is just the beginning of a long and contentious process. The budget now heads to the Senate, where it faces an uncertain future. Democrats are united in their opposition, and it's unclear whether Republicans have the votes to pass it without significant changes. The coming weeks will be crucial as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle dig in their heels and prepare for a protracted battle. The stakes are high, with the potential for government shutdowns and political gridlock looming large. One thing is certain: President Trump's budget has ignited a firestorm of controversy in Washington. It has exposed the deep partisan divisions that continue to plague American politics, and its ultimate fate will have far-reaching consequences for the country's future. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the media world, the Trump administration has implemented new restrictions on press access at the White House. This development has raised serious concerns about transparency and freedom of the press, with critics accusing the administration of attempting to control the narrative and stifle dissent. The new restrictions have particularly impacted reporters from Voice of America, the United States government-funded international broadcaster. These journalists have traditionally enjoyed a high level of access to White House events and officials, but under the new rules, they face significant limitations. The administration defends the move, claiming it's necessary to ensure order and manage the flow of information. However, many journalists see it as a blatant attempt to limit scrutiny and control the message coming out of the White House. This latest development is part of a broader pattern of tension between the Trump administration and the press. President Trump has repeatedly attacked the media, labeling critical coverage as fake news and accusing journalists of being the enemy of the people. The Trump administration's approach to press access stands in stark contrast to the policies of previous administrations, both Democrat and Republican. The Obama administration in particular prided itself on transparency and open communication with the press. Under President Obama, the White House press corps enjoyed regular briefings and access to senior officials. The administration recognized the importance of a free and independent press in holding the government accountable and informing the public. The Trump administration's restrictions mark a significant departure from this approach, raising concerns about a potential erosion of press freedom. Critics argue that limiting access to information undermines the public's right to know and creates an environment where misinformation can thrive. The debate over press access goes to the heart of the relationship between the government and the people. A free and independent press is essential for a functioning democracy, and any attempt to stifle it should be met with serious concern. The Trump administration's decision to specifically target Voice of America has raised particular alarm bells. Critics see it as an attempt to silence a respected news organization that provides independent coverage to a global audience. Voice of America has a long history of providing objective and balanced reporting, even during times of war and political turmoil. It's a vital source of information for millions of people around the world who rely on it for accurate and unbiased news. By restricting access for Voice of America reporters, the administration is sending a chilling message about its willingness to target media outlets that don't toe the official line. This move has the potential to undermine America's credibility as a champion of free speech and a free press. The international community is watching closely as the situation unfolds. Many foreign governments and media organizations have expressed concern about the Trump administration's actions, warning that they could set a dangerous precedent for press freedom around the world. The Trump administration's actions are already having a chilling effect on journalism within the United States. Many reporters, fearing retaliation or restricted access, are hesitant to ask tough questions or challenge the administration's narrative. This self-censorship, while understandable, poses a serious threat to a free and independent press. When journalists are afraid to do their jobs, the public is deprived of the information they need to hold their leaders accountable. The erosion of press freedom is a slippery slope. What begins with restrictions on access can quickly escalate to more overt forms of censorship. It's a dangerous path that the United States, with its proud tradition of a free press, must avoid at all costs. The fight for press freedom is a fight for democracy itself. When the press is free to report without fear or favor, the public is empowered to make informed decisions and hold their leaders accountable. The Trump administration's efforts to control the message and limit press access have been met with fierce resistance from journalists, media organizations, and press freedom advocates. Lawsuits have been filed challenging the legality of the administration's actions, and there is a growing chorus of voices demanding greater transparency and accountability. the battle for press freedom is far from over. The outcome of this battle will have profound implications for the future of American democracy. A free and independent press is essential for holding the powerful accountable and ensuring that the public is informed. It is the duty of every citizen to defend the right of journalists to do their jobs without fear or favor. The future of a free and open society depends on it. Chapter 4. Elon Musk's Federal Worker Email Directive. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur behind Tesla and SpaceX, has been a prominent figure in the Trump administration, serving as an informal advisor on various issues. But his latest move has sent shockwaves through the federal workforce. Musk has issued a directive requiring every federal employee to send a weekly email detailing their productivity. This unprecedented move has ignited a firestorm of controversy, with critics denouncing it as an invasion of privacy and an unnecessary burden on government workers. The directive, which was reportedly communicated to agency heads through a series of emails and phone calls, has left many federal employees feeling anxious and uncertain about their job security. The lack of clear guidelines on what constitutes productivity has only added to the confusion and fear. Some fear that this directive is less about improving efficiency and more about creating a climate of fear and intimidation within the federal workforce. Supporters of the directive, however, argue that it is a necessary step to improve accountability and transparency within the federal government. They contend that taxpayers deserve to know how their money is being spent, and that this measure will help to ensure that federal employees are working efficiently and effectively. Musk himself has defended the directive, arguing that it is essential for ensuring that the government is operating in a results-oriented manner. But critics argue that this directive is a misguided attempt to apply private sector principles to the public sector. They point out that federal employees are already subject to performance reviews and other forms of accountability. They argue that this new requirement will only serve to create unnecessary bureaucracy and paperwork, diverting valuable time and resources away from essential government services. The backlash to Musk's directive has been swift and fierce, particularly from federal employee unions, who have vowed to fight the measure in court. They argue that the directive violates federal labor laws and employee privacy rights. Several legal challenges have already been filed, alleging that the directive was implemented without proper consultation with unions and that it violates collective bargaining agreements. The unions argue that the directive is a clear attempt to intimidate and silence federal employees, creating a chilling effect on dissent and whistleblowing. They fear that employees will be reluctant to speak out against waste, fraud, or abuse, for fear of being perceived as unproductive. They also point out that the directive fails to take into account the diverse nature of federal jobs, many of which involve complex tasks that cannot be easily quantified or measured on a weekly basis. The legal battle over Musk's directive is likely to be protracted and contentious, with both sides digging in for a long fight. The outcome of this case could have far-reaching implications for the future of the federal workforce and the balance of power between the government and its employees. It also raises questions about the role of unelected advisors like Musk in shaping government policy. The controversy surrounding Musk's directive highlights the growing tension between the Trump administration's push for deregulation and smaller government, and the concerns of those who fear that such efforts are undermining the vital role of the federal government in American society. It remains to be seen whether this directive will ultimately be implemented nationwide and what its long-term impact will be on the morale, productivity, and effectiveness of the federal workforce. Legal experts are divided on the legality of Musk's directive. Some argue that the president, as the head of the executive branch, has broad authority to set workplace policies for federal employees. They point to past precedent where presidents have implemented significant changes to federal personnel policies, such as President Reagan's decision to fire striking air traffic controllers. However, other legal scholars argue that Musk's directive may exceed the president's authority and infringe on the rights of federal employees. They point out that federal employees, unlike their private sector counterparts, have certain constitutional protections, including First Amendment rights to free speech and association. They argue that requiring employees to disclose their work activities in such a broad and undefined manner could be seen as a form of compelled speech, and could have a chilling effect on employees' willingness to exercise their First Amendment rights. Furthermore, legal experts point out that the directive raises serious privacy concerns. Federal employees handle sensitive information, and requiring them to disclose their work activities in a weekly email could potentially expose this information to unauthorized individuals. There are also concerns that the information collected through these emails could be used to target employees for their political beliefs or other protected characteristics. The legal challenges to Musk's directive are likely to center around these constitutional and privacy concerns. Courts will have to weigh the government's interest in promoting efficiency and accountability against the rights of federal employees to free speech, privacy, and due process. The outcome of these legal battles could have significant implications for the future of government transparency and the relationship between the government and its employees. Beyond the legal questions, Musk's directive has also sparked a broader debate about productivity in the workplace, particularly in the public sector. Supporters of the directive argue that it is a common-sense measure that will help to ensure that taxpayers are getting their money's worth. They point to the perception that government bureaucracy is often inefficient and wasteful, and argue that this measure will help to address these concerns. Musk himself has been a vocal critic of what he sees as bureaucratic inefficiency in government. He has argued that the government needs to adopt a more entrepreneurial mindset and embrace innovation to better serve the needs of citizens. He sees this directive as a step towards creating a more results-oriented culture within the federal government. However, critics argue that measuring productivity in the public sector is far more complex than simply tracking the number of emails sent or hours worked. They argue that many government jobs involve complex tasks that require creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking, which cannot be easily quantified. They fear that the directive will incentivize employees to prioritize tasks that can be easily measured, even if those tasks are not the most important or impactful. Critics also argue that the directive fails to take into account the unique challenges faced by the public sector, such as limited resources, bureaucratic hurdles, and political constraints. They contend that simply demanding more productivity without addressing these underlying issues is unlikely to lead to meaningful improvements in government efficiency. At the heart of the controversy surrounding Musk's directive is a fundamental question of trust. Supporters of the directive believe that increased oversight and accountability are necessary to ensure that federal employees are fulfilling their duties to the public. They argue that transparency is essential for maintaining public trust in government. However, critics argue that the directive is based on a fundamental mistrust of government employees, and that it will only serve to demoralize and alienate the very people who are dedicated to serving the public good. They fear that the directive will create a culture of fear and suspicion, where employees are afraid to take risks or speak out for fear of being perceived as unproductive. The controversy surrounding Musk's directive highlights the deep divisions in American society over the role of government and the importance of public service. It also underscores the challenges of balancing the need for accountability with the rights and dignity of government employees. Only time will tell what the ultimate impact of Musk's directive will be. However, the debate it has sparked is a reminder of the importance of thoughtful and nuanced conversations about how to improve government efficiency and effectiveness, while also safeguarding the rights and well-being of those who dedicate their careers to public service. Chapter 5: Trump's Gold Card Visa for Wealthy Foreigners. The Trump administration has unveiled a controversial new immigration policy dubbed the Gold Card Visa program. This initiative aims to attract wealthy foreign investors, including Russian oligarchs, by offering them a fast track to American citizenship in exchange for significant financial investments in the United States. Under the program, foreign nationals who invest a minimum of $5 million in designated economic zones within the United States can apply for a special visa that allows them to live and work in the country. After a period of time, these investors and their families would be eligible to apply for permanent residency, commonly known as a green card, and eventually, American citizenship. The administration argues that the program will stimulate the American economy by attracting billions of dollars in foreign investment, creating jobs, and boosting economic growth. They point to similar programs in other countries, such as Canada and Australia, which have been successful in attracting foreign investment. However, Critics have denounced the program as a blatant attempt to sell American citizenship to the highest bidder, arguing that it undermines the principles of fairness and equality that underpin the American immigration system. They argue that the program creates a system of two tiers, one for the wealthy elite and another for ordinary immigrants who face significant hurdles and lengthy wait times. The Trump administration has touted the Gold Card visa program as an economic engine that will create jobs and boost economic growth. They argue that the influx of foreign investment will revitalize struggling industries, finance new businesses, and create employment opportunities for American workers. Proponents of the program point to the potential for investment in infrastructure projects, real estate development, and technology startups. They argue that these investments will have a ripple effect throughout the economy, creating jobs not only in the industries directly receiving investment but also in related sectors. However, critics argue that the economic benefits of the program are overstated and that it is unlikely to generate the kind of widespread economic growth promised by the administration. They point out that similar programs in other countries have yielded mixed results, with some studies showing that the economic benefits are often concentrated among a small group of wealthy individuals and corporations, while others argue that the programs have led to increased real estate prices, making housing less affordable for ordinary citizens. Critics also express concerns that the program could lead to speculative investment, where foreign investors purchase assets primarily for their potential to appreciate in value rather than for their economic productivity. This could lead to asset bubbles and market instability, ultimately harming the American economy in the long run. Beyond the economic arguments, the Gold Card visa program has also raised ethical concerns and national security questions. Critics argue that the program essentially allows wealthy foreigners to buy their way into America, undermining the principle of equal opportunity that has long been a cornerstone of the American dream. They argue that the program creates a two-tiered immigration system, where the wealthy elite can essentially purchase citizenship, while ordinary immigrants, many of whom come from developing countries and are seeking a better life for themselves and their families, face significant barriers and lengthy wait times. Furthermore, national security experts have raised concerns that the program could be exploited by criminals, terrorists, and foreign agents seeking to gain access to the United States. They argue that the vetting process for investors may not be as rigorous as other immigration categories, potentially allowing individuals with malicious intent to slip through the cracks. The program's lax residency requirements, which allow investors to spend significant time outside the United States, have also been flagged as a potential security risk. This makes it more difficult for authorities to track the activities of these individuals and assess any potential threats they may pose. The Gold Card visa program has been particularly popular among wealthy individuals from Russia, China, and other countries where obtaining citizenship can be difficult, or where individuals seek to diversify their assets and secure a safe haven for themselves and their families. Critics argue that the program could allow Russian oligarchs with ties to the Kremlin to gain a foothold in the United States, potentially giving them access to political influence and undermining American foreign policy interests. They point to the ongoing investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election and the potential for foreign influence in American politics. The program has also raised concerns about money laundering, as wealthy individuals may use investments in real estate and other assets to obscure the origins of illicit funds. The lack of transparency in the program, particularly regarding the source of funds used for investments, has made it difficult to assess the extent to which the program may be facilitating money laundering and other financial crimes. The Gold Card visa program has become a lightning rod for broader debates about immigration, wealth inequality, and national security. Critics argue that the program exacerbates existing inequalities by giving preferential treatment to the wealthy and powerful, while neglecting the needs of ordinary Americans. The Gold Card visa program has exposed deep divisions in American society over the meaning of citizenship and the values that should guide the country's immigration policies. Supporters of the program see it as a pragmatic way to attract investment and stimulate economic growth, arguing that the benefits outweigh any potential drawbacks. They argue that the United States has always been a nation of immigrants and that welcoming wealthy investors is in line with the country's tradition of embracing those who can contribute to its prosperity. They also contend that the program can help to address the issue of illegal immigration by providing a legal pathway for those who are willing to invest in the country. However, opponents of the program argue that it undermines the fundamental principles of fairness and equality that should underpin the immigration system. They believe that citizenship should be based on merit, family ties, and humanitarian considerations, not on wealth or investment potential. They argue that the program sends the wrong message to the world, suggesting that America is for sale to the highest bidder and that its values are negotiable. They fear that the program will further erode public trust in government and exacerbate existing social and economic divisions. The debate over the Gold Card visa program reflects the broader conversation about America's role in the world and the values it chooses to prioritize. As the program continues to attract both support and opposition, it remains to be seen how it will ultimately shape the country's economic and social landscape. Chapter 6. Outro. These 4 stories offer a glimpse into how the Trump administration is shaping America's future. From a GOP-backed budget that prioritizes tax cuts and military spending to controversial changes to White House press access, the nation is witnessing a significant shift in policy and priorities. Elon Musk's foray into government, marked by his controversial directive for federal workers, raises questions about the role of unelected advisors in shaping policy and the potential for private sector influence on public institutions. Meanwhile, the Gold Card visa program has ignited a fierce debate about immigration, wealth inequality, and the very meaning of American citizenship. These are just a few of the many stories unfolding in Washington and across the country. What do you think about these policies and their potential impact on America's future? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more political updates.